All right, well, we are live. We got a little bit of feedback. We'll give it a second for everything to run its course, but thank you everybody for joining us. And today we are going to start things off. We'll give folks a couple minutes to sign in, but we're going to start things off by running through the 25.1 NetSuite updates. Glenn, I don't know if you got feedback on your end, but
I'm not getting on my end.
all good. All right, well, I'll start things off and we'll run through to our audience. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit us in the comments section. But as of right now, we've got a collective 0 folks in. So maybe give it another minute or two for folks to trickle in, and then I'll run through the updates. And since nobody's here, I can probably address my attire. But it is a great ski day in Northern California, so I'm looking forward to taking a half day. So after this, you will not be seeing too much of me for the remainder of the day. So Glenn, I thought what we could do is really start with the 25.1, and I'll go through some of the updates. Maybe if you could share just some of the business benefits you see from these areas. Let's start with everybody's favorite, accounting and financial management. So with 25.1, a couple of critical bullets that we identified. You have the enhancements to merge revenue arrangements. So this ensures consistency, effective start dates, removes support for retroactive merges to prevent errors. Same vein, you can now add new target fields for RevRec, expanding the field mapping for more precise revenue management, as well as the fixed assets management enhancements. So introducing midlife lease integration, improving system setup for seamless asset tracking. Anything you want to point out here from a benefit standpoint with the new features coming from 25.1?
Nothing earth-shattering here. I think, I think in looking through this as a whole, there's not a ton in this particular release. There's some cool things with supply chain, mobile capabilities, some of the manufacturing functionality, and just minor incremental improvements. I think a lot of focus is being centered around AI and the applications of that inside of EPM, but then also in the Redwood experience, which we're starting to trickle out and see customizable widgets and dashboards and pages. It's not going to be overnight. If anybody remembers back in 2014 to 2016, there was kind of the rewrite of the UI of NetSuite into what it is today. And we're kind of going through that again. It's kind of one of those every 10 years you get to experience it type of thing. I think it's just giving tools to make it easier for the financial folks that utilize NetSuite to manage, plan, and deal with revenue recognition. And the lease accounting, trying to shore up the requirements that they have for, I'm blanking on what the mandate is, but for lease accounting, and providing that straight inside of NetSuite is one of the big things that is going to push people to use NetSuite's fixed assets versus go with third-party systems that can do it as well. So I think those are just kind of status quo stuff that's needed, nothing earth-shattering that's going to change the way businesses are using NetSuite. So.
All right, well, let's switch gears and we'll talk to everybody's favorite driver of their stock tickers and talk about AI, as well as everybody's security requirements with authentication. So as it relates to the AI updates with NetSuite, so we're starting to see updates to the AI preferences. So centralizing those AI settings for text enhance and SuiteScript into a single location, which is fantastic. Switching gears to the authentication. If you're not aware, there is end of support for the outbound single sign-on. If you're still using single sign-on, God help you. Please do not be using single sign-on with NetSuite. But encouraging the migration to more secure NetSuite as an OIDC provider. And then lastly, the end of support for RSA, PKC, SV1.5 for OAuth 2.1, which should be strengthening security by requiring the RSA PSS encryption. Glenn, anything you want to talk to as it relates to AI and authentication?
I think the more interesting use case for AI is that you can use, because NetSuite has its LLM module within SuiteScript. So you can actually create your own use cases for AI in the NetSuite application. I saw an interesting one the other day, and I apologize, I can't give credit here. I don't remember where I saw it, who had done it, whether it was LinkedIn or somewhere where, you could use the AI LLM module to generate a summary of what an order looks like, which gave me an idea to use ChatGPT because I didn't want to have to write code, nor am I probably capable to summarize some of our contracts and agreements and put key terminology and points on the records in NetSuite. And so I thought that was an interesting use case. I think there's other ways that the learning language model can be used inside of core NetSuite. I think what they're doing with Text Enhance is okay. I have yet to see a ton of use cases. I'm sure there's plenty out there. So I'm just speaking on personal experience for that. But again, they're continuing to evolve, and it will reach a crescendo where it will matter to a lot of companies and a lot of individuals.
Okay. Want to cover banking and transactions. So, really from a banking transaction standpoint, the changes of auto create rule behavior. So preventing unintended transactions by making auto create rules manual instead of automatic. Glenn, do you mind sharing a little bit of context here?
So essentially, there's settings within the bank reconciliation piece where you can have it automatically create transactions on your behalf when you're importing those and planning those transactions. And this is just removing that so that you can review them if you don't want those transactions to actually be created. So again, nothing earth shattering, but good functionality to make bank reconciliation a lot easier. And I think this is an area I've seen NetSuite improve dramatically since we started with them over the years. They've taken into heart, like, people coming from QuickBooks want really automated, easy to use bank recs.
All right. So inventory warehouse management, and we'll get to your questions in just a second. As it relates to the warehouse management enhancement, so you now have the introduction of pick task decomposition, the partial pick reversal, tally scanning for improved efficiency. You also have new WMS preferred bins for put away, which should be optimizing your warehouse space allocation. And lastly, there's some supply chain enhancements. So adding scoped planning repository refresh and a supplier filter for better demand planning.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an area NetSuite continues to do a lot of enhancements, needed enhancements, to my opinion. They're continuing to invest in the warehouse management, some of the use cases there to build the WMS system into just some needed functionality that it hasn't had. It doesn't have a ton of functionality around space optimization, bin sizes, things like that. It has some generic functionality that you can tweak. So that's interesting to see. I think one of the biggest ones and big use case for us personally is a scoped MRP refresh, which, it alluded to the fact that it had it prior to this, but it was not documented that it was always a full refresh. So if you wanted to take a look at 5 items which may have had updates in the recent days, you had to run a full MRP refresh over every item, every transaction in the system to get it there, which created some heartache for one customer in particular. So we're trying to use that to make their life easier with inside their usage of NetSuite. So,
all right. So Suite Analytics and Reporting, you do have the end of support for NetSuite.com data source. So this moves all reporting to NetSuite2.com for better performance. A new option to send reports to each group member, so it ensures individuals receive reports directly instead of only group emails, and new HTML formulas in the search feature, so improving data customization and searches.
Yeah, I've been happy to see they've continued to expand upon their usage of the NetSuite data sets and analytics workbooks. So, I've seen people use the ODBC connector, and I mean, as a old SQL guy, it's fun to write SQL code, but at the end of the day, I don't really care. It's all about how you get the information out. So it's good to see that they're continuing to enhance that. And I think making the data extraction easier and more robust in how we can use it and link data sets together. And there's some cool features where you can export that directly as SuiteQL, which then you can easily export or create a report in a third-party system. Is exciting to see. And one of the things that we work with a friend of ours on, that developing a more robust native Power BI connector where you can export SuiteQL, you can export data sets, save searches, all of that directly to Power BI for consumption, which goes against NetSuite wanting to use Analytics Warehouse. But let's be honest, a lot of people use Power BI and will continue to do so.
Right, order and subscription management. So the ARR analytics, now you can expand financial tracking beyond monthly MRR. You have invoice and allocation before activation, so allowing businesses to build hardware and projects before subscription activation, as well as pooled usage and uplift with higher decimal precision, enhancing the pricing flexibility and financial accuracy.
This is pretty specific use cases, right? For people that are in suite billing that have pooled usage. So you have a pool of usage up to a certain point. Decimal precision always creates challenges in the ERP environments. I've seen it where it expands it too far, which mostly for visualization and reporting purposes, that certain people don't like. They're like, well, 5 decimal places is fine. And other areas where going to 5 decimal places creates a hell of a lot of problems because you need more precision. I like some of, if anyone's not using the SaaS metrics, it is decent. I will say there's some functionality in there that's kind of nice to be able to put on your not on your dashboard, but within that portlet and see on the SaaS metrics. There's still some issues of it doesn't look at credit memos and things like that may be necessary. But overall, it's pretty flexible and functional. And it gives you a good idea of your run rate, your churn, your MRR, your ARR, and how it, you got to be careful how you classify transactions for how it displays there. But it's a pretty useful tool. And it, again, continues to enhance on some of those forecasting and reporting, which is just critical for recurring revenue businesses.
All right. So next on the e-commerce and CRM front, I think what you'll see is enhancements to the customer experience and the payment convenience. So they do now have the direct invoice payment in My Account, so customers can pay invoices directly via a secure link. I think most folks are familiar with that. 360 customer 360 enhancements. I think we all love the 360 enhancements NetSuite's been rolling out. So, adding new metrics like customer lifetime value, product recommendations, and orders and returns with insights, I think is pretty awesome. And then the security enhancements to case management. So introducing time-limited links for secure customer support case updates. And Glenn, I believe you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted because of the feedback. I think it's pretty straightforward. The Customer 360 is very useful for product-centric companies. I think they still need to think about how that impacts businesses that may sell services, where you're looking at more financial-driven metrics and taking the old customer dashboard and giving more configurability to how it's displayed on that Customer 360. I think would be a pretty cool use case. That's just a personal opinion, though.
All right. Well, I've got just 2 more sections. We've got manufacturing and suite app updates, manufacturing routing updates. So introducing operation delays and flexible task sequencing for more efficient workflows. There's more Ship Central enhancements. So adding carton reuse, weight tracking, shipping discount management, and then the quality management, enabling statistical sampling for better product quality control.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they're doing with the statistics. Sorry, I'm unmuted again. The statistical enhancements. The statistical enhancements, because that's been something that most people have needed a separate system when they're using quality to do the statistical analysis on the data. So I'm interested to see what they've got there. Obviously, the routing updates is something that's been needed for a long time, because everybody knows you may have during time in your manufacturing process, you may have delays between steps that you want to be able to plan for. That's just lag time. And
Yeah.
NetSuite never allowed for more than a certain amount of lag time between one operational step and another. And you can do it as sub-assemblies, but then you're dealing with a subassembly you need to move to a bin. But how do you accurately plan your entire production process if you can't account for that? And I think
Right.
that's created some challenges for some more complicated production planning facilities. So it's good to see they're doing that. I'll be interested to see what they've got and how you're able to manage it via the drag and drop, or even the planning and linking between the various steps in the production process. So, but again, step in the right direction.
Yeah. All right, last one, and then we'll get to your guys' questions. We've got employee management and payroll updates. So now you can download your W-2 and W-2C forms. So employees can self-download these tax documents from the Employee Center. And of course, lastly, the rebranding of Workforce Management Suite app. So aligning with branding and improving navigation for time tracking and scheduling. I think I can speak to this one, streamlining HR processes, payroll management, and workforce engagement. I don't think there's too much there, unless Glenn, you want to dive in.
I think the bigger question is, why did it take this long to make full W-2 forms?
I hear you.
We'll leave it at that.
Yep. All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat. We've got a couple from Reddit and YouTube I can run through. So as you guys have questions, please feel free. The first one we have here is from Corey. It says, how do you record ACHs? I feel like there has to be a better way. Currently, when my company pays something via ACH and we go to pay bills, we have to select either to be printed or just let a check number be assigned. This leaves me manually changing the check numbers to say ACH. Is there a better way to do this?
Unfortunately here, either looking into a payment automation solution that's going to communicate with your bank, and depending on your bank may have something where you can transmit the ACH file and then it can write back what those actual ACH numbers were. If you're manually downloading it and uploading it to the bank, unfortunately, you're going to always be stuck having to manually update those, because NetSuite has no connection to the bank. It does not know what numbers were generated for those ACH. So if there's not some sort of communication between the two systems, there's really not a lot that NetSuite can do to alleviate this situation. They do offer NetSuite payment automation, which goes through the HSBC clearinghouse, I think, to do those payments. So, I mean, that is certainly an option. Obviously, that mandates working with HSBC in some way. From my understanding, it's not dependent on HSBC being your bank of record, but it does use their gateway, if you will, to communicate to the various providers. So, just a couple of options. There's other payment automation solutions out there as well. We've done some stuff with communication to the bank back and forth. So, unfortunately, there's no turnkey, easy solution for this one.
I see Bruno.
I'm sure there is something.
Bruno in the comments said electronic bank payments. I'm not sure if there's any context there.
Yeah, so that's a module within NetSuite that'll communicate directly to the bank. However, I'd have to ask my team, because I'm not positive if it writes back the actual ACH transaction on the record. So there's payment automation and ACH payments, or electronic bank payments, that will facilitate the communication, but I'm not sure if it communicates back the payment information with the actual ACH number. And Bruno, if you know, I apologize. That's one of the details I'm not sure of. So.
All right, well, let's get into the next question here. So landed cost, everybody's favorite. So how to assign landed cost value to serial and lot numbers. When running an inventory valuation report, find out there's unassigned amount. Upon checking, is landed cost from IR. How to assign the landed cost value to the serial lot number based on the inventory detail. Transfer order to fulfillment to item receipt, added landed cost. On the landed cost tab, this is what I did.
Yep. You have to make sure that item is set up to be allocated the landed cost. So there's a checkbox on the item itself, which allows it to be allocated landed cost. and whatever your landed cost allocation is has to be weight, quantity, or value are the three options for allocation of landed cost. So if you're, whatever that allocation methodology that you're is, or if you're allocating it directly on the line item, which I'm not sure, because there's a landed cost tab, but then there's also the landed cost on the line item where you can directly allocate it. It should allocate it in if you're doing it at the tab level, it's going to allocate it based on all the item receipts. So if you got 5 items on there, it's going to allocate it that way. If you have you're doing it on the line level, it should allocate directly into the lot or serial number or numbers that are being received. But it will allocate it out based on that total number and the number of lots or serialization and the quantities within each.
All right, next one. We've got one from Weekly Umpire. So barcoding and item labels feature. Has anyone implemented the native feature barcoding and item labels plus serialized items for their daily operations in the context of entry of items, inventory counts, and outflow of items?
Yeah, so we've had quite a few customers use this. It does require some management and modifications, I would say. Just depending on your process, right? If you're doing barcoding, you're using NetSuite WMS, like how do you go about printing those labels? When do you print them? Are you printing them from the scan gun, which requires print node, which I think print node actually goes away in this release, or it went away last release. I can't remember. That can have a more direct connection to printers on your network. But it also depends on your requirements. If you're wanting to print 2D labels with like a QR code, or if you're just printing straight UPC code. Natively, if you just have advanced inventory, it's UPC code based on the barcode, and you print the labels and the quantities directly from the item record within inside NetSuite or in the print checks and forms area of the application. So the answer is yes. There's some gotchas of if you're trying to do it out on a shop floor and considerations to take into account when you go about planning this type of rollout. And I'll plug a partner thing here, but if you're really wanting more robust printing and you already have like a bartender instance, the guys at Blend ERP have a good solution to connect basically any page within NetSuite to print labels to bartender, and map fields directly. And it's just easy. So if you're looking for easy over native functionality, I would look at that. So.
All right, we got a couple more questions here on the subscription product. So we sell subscription products to other businesses. Currently, those subscription products are set up as non-inventory items in our NetSuite. And I think because of that setup, the invoice doesn't get items with the $0 amount on my SO sales order. My question is, can I set up subscriptions as a service item? If so, are there any downside or things to be aware of?
No downsides that I can think of. In fact, I tend to use, like, if you use subscription billing within NetSuite, you have to set them up as service items because it really considers subscriptions to be services. So I would recommend it. Non-inventory items have their own thing with expense when received and other elements. Shouldn't make a dramatic difference, but and on the printing of the invoice, I'm going to say this because I'm not sure, but I believe there's an option somewhere to include $0 line items. I can't remember honestly, but it should still transfer over if it's been fulfilled or ready to be sent, even though it's not fulfillable. So you may have to check it on the item, whether it's fulfillable or not. Those are just a couple of ideas that I would check on, because I'm, again, without knowing the whole context or talking in detail, it's hard to say for sure, but those are a couple of things I would think about.
All right, let's give you another fun one. So NetSuite Suite Billing. I'm trying to find where to add additional months to the field term and initial items. When creating a subscription in Suite Billing, I can't seem to find it. It doesn't seem to be a custom list.
I am not sure. That is a standard, I believe a standard terms. I'm not sure where to set that up. Let me look here. Go on to the next question. I'll look.
You got it. All right. So optimal CRM flow for opportunities and estimates in the forecast and pipeline. Buckle up because this is about 2 pages long. So looking for high executive visibility with minimal sales rep data management. Currently, our goal is to give the sales manager a full picture of what's being worked on using the pipeline and forecast reports that are OOTB from NetSuite or the box. But most importantly, we want to minimize the data input and management tasks of the sales rep so they can focus on selling. Ultimately, we need a simple path through from RFQ to sales order that makes it easy for sales reps to keep track of their opportunities, estimates, and timeline, which should give the manager accurate forecast and pipeline data to monitor and use for planning accordingly. What have you implemented, find that was successful? What support tools, dashboards did you create, and how did you structure it? Seems like a Kanban might work for them.
Yeah, I would keep it very simple with status in the pipeline, which you can create your own, exactly what you need, and use that. And then also what key next steps are, and have a drop down list of something. You want to keep it simple. You got to put some structure around it. Otherwise, people can key in whatever the heck they want. Maybe you have next steps as one field and it's limited, but I would keep it simple on that, because that, again, how much data can you get from your reps and what's going to be required for the reporting that's necessary for execs. And somewhere you got to meet in the middle. Change management. This is one of the reasons ERP and CRM implementations are so hard. You have to get both sides to agree to a minimal viable solution so that both sides get what they want. And I have an answer to the other one.
Okay.
The previous question. It is under accounting list and it's subscription terms.
All right. All right, well, we only have one more question. And again, if anybody's in the audience who wants to ask something, please feel free. Now's the time. So the last one is workflow quote management. In attempting to create a workflow that will display a message box on a quote if a customer chosen already has quotes outstanding, as the workflow is based on the transactions. I'm having trouble sourcing the quote statuses on the existing customer to signal that there are already outstanding quotes to be attended to before creating more. Any advice would help.
So I think on this one, it's going to require kind of two parts. One is I think you're going to have to create a sourced field on the customer record for the number of outstanding quotes, or the latest quote or something on that respect that gets updated periodically, like every day or so. You should be able to do that with workflow, shouldn't require a script. And then on the quote record itself, you can check the customer record, because I'm not positive, because I'd have to look at this, if you can actually run like a save search after field sourcing of the customer on the quote record and then display a message. But you can very easily check the customer to then display a message and can input the data that's on the customer record in that message using formulas. That would be the short and easy. My guess is it's two-part. It's a workflow and field on the customer, and then after field sourcing event on the quote to check the customer record and show that on the quote itself. Because I've tried to do this on transactional records before, and you can only reach so far. You can't like query all that at once in a workflow without a script. So my guess is it's going to be a two-part kind of deployment.
All right. Well, it looks like that's the last of the questions. If anybody has any others, please feel free to chime in. I think as most of you are aware, Nuage, our organization, provides optimization, post-go live support, as well as the implementation of NetSuite. So feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions, you'd like to talk offline. I will make sure we add our contact information. Please friend us on LinkedIn. And without further ado, we'll wrap things up. Glenn, thank you so much for having us today and spending some time.
No worries, man. Hope the slopes are nice for you today.
I hope so too. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate the time.
Take care. See you, Louis.